And so you wondering why you struggling with stuff that you ain't never really exposed yourself to. It's because the iniquity from the third and fourth generation is showing up in your life.
Wow.
But the interesting part, Sister Akasha, is this. God says all that prior to Jesus coming. This is the preaching part. That's why I got to kind of talk now, because that's the exciting part right there. God says all this prior to introducing Jesus to the world. Jesus comes to say, because I showed up, you now have the ability to be delivered from what the law said was supposed to belong to you. And since I've got, help me tonight, Jesus, since Jesus comes to deliver me from the curse of the law, the only way I allow myself to still deteriorate is if I ignore what Jesus did.
Wow.
He came to tell me that the old way was outdated. And now I'm giving you a new path in which to walk. So whenever I let deterioration settle in my life, it's not because it had to happen. It's because I chose for it to happen. Because Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to God except by me, which means this. If I intervene on your behalf, whatever the iniquity that you should have been dealing with, whenever that shows up, you already got your way out. But if I'm dug too deep in where I am, I ignore what Jesus can and has done for me. You know, listen, if you're ever in a church or at a place and somebody's preaching Jesus and they're teaching Jesus, and whatever they're teaching and preaching related to Jesus doesn't point back to redemption, it's not biblical. I'll say that again. Whenever somebody is preaching or teaching about Jesus and it does not point back to redemption, it's not biblical. Because all Jesus came to do was to redeem. That was his sole purpose in coming, was to be the redeemer. In order to redeem, that means I've got to stand in the place of one that was guilty. I've got to stand in the place to take his punishment, to nail his punishment or suffer his punishment on the cross, so that now whenever his wrong shows up or his due punishment shows up, it's already been settled. Because I came to redeem. All right, let me keep moving. All right, a dead tree begins to show visible deterioration. All right, it begins to show, as I said earlier, it becomes a home or a nesting place for burrowing insects. All right, let me deal with something about a burrowing insect. I preached this before. I've said this before. I think I've been preaching in Virginia though, so it might be kind of new in North Carolina. But when the 23rd Psalm was written, David says, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Make me lie down in green pastures, lead beside still waters. All those good things, stir my soul. All those good things. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thou rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemy. Thou anointest my head with oil. All right? I've given this analogy before, given this understanding before, but I'm going to give it again tonight because it's needed. He says, thou anointest my head with oil. All right? The head. And I'm trying to give you the dangers, to show you the dangers of a dead tree. All right? The head of the sheep, Sister Lipscomb, because a sheep has not the ability to talk or to communicate the way you and I do. The sheep cannot say. He doesn't have the same flexibility in his limbs that we do. So if ever a sheep is being attacked by something, like there's a gnat flying around here tonight, all right? So if that gnat was flying around sheep, the sheep would not be able to defend itself against the gnat because it can't swat at it like we can. Get the picture, all right? So all he can do is attempt to endure this irritation. Okay, insects know that sheep can't bat them away. So they look for a sheep who does not have oil on his head. Because when his head is dry, the burrowing insect plants in his wool and it starts eating at his skull. And if there is no oil put on the head of the sheep, the burrowing insect will eventually kill him. He'll start with his head, then he'll get to his ears. God help me not to preach tonight.
Right. Yeah.
He'll start with his head, then he'll get to his ears.
Yeah.
And when he's at his head, he's burrowing at his mind, at his thoughts, eating away at what he knows. Then he slides to his ears and start convincing him that this is his future. And so whenever oil is not applied to the head of the sheep, there is a burrowing that happens in his ear, which means his end result is that he's going to turn into what the burrowing insect says he is.
Yeah. That's deep.
Wow.
So the sheep, check this out, Sister Lipscomb, because he can't fight on his own, he gets convinced that the shepherd doesn't care about him, so he runs away from the pack.
Wow.
Because the burrowing insect got in his ears long enough to convince him that the shepherd didn't care about what he was going through. Yes. So now the sheep says, I'm going to separate myself from the pack because the shepherd doesn't really love me anyway. And all the burrowing insect was desiring the sheep to do was get alone so he could do his whistle and call the rest of his boys that they can come and now really consume the sheep. So when the shepherd gets an idea that the sheep has been separated and has been affected by a burrowing insect, the shepherd comes to try to heal the sheep. But most of the time, the sheep has been eaten up so bad that they can't even recognize the love of a real shepherd.
Wow.
And because they can't recognize the love of a real shepherd, they tell the shepherd, I'd rather stay on my own than come join church again. Because I've been eaten up when I was in church the last time, and I don't want to come back and be eaten up again. But a real shepherd says, not only am I coming to get you, but I'm coming with insect repellent.
That's awesome, sir. That's good, sir. Yes, sir.
I'm coming first to clean you, but this is the heavy part. You got to let me shear off the old wool.
Oh, that's good.
Because if I let the old wool stay
go ahead,
on
sir.
you,
Yes, sir.
then the burrowing insect is going to continue to mess up what you think you're supposed to do. Let me cut off what he's messed up.
stuff.
Let me spray some repellent around you.
Yes, sir.
And then I'm going to start pouring oil over
Yes,
you.
sir. Yes,
so
sir.
that now when the burrowing insect tries to show up, he has to bounce off because he can't stick with the oil.
Come on, sir. That's awesome. That's awesome.
So now, oh God, this, and I'm still talking about a tree. I promise I'm gonna get back. But now, Sister Lipscomb, you got a sheep that's come back or that's come into a fold. The sheep is coming in naked because the shepherd had to shear him, but he's looking at all these sheep that are fully clothed. The interesting thing about sheep is their hair doesn't grow the same rate as ours. The hair of a sheep can grow based on its environment. Oh God, help
that's
me.
good, sir.
So if the sheep is looking around and all he's seeing is wool around him, his hair follicles start to talk to his body.
Come on, sir.
And say, wait a minute, you look like you're out of place. And since everybody else here is full and fluffy, I'm going to make things speed up now in you that your follicles are reproduced like everybody else's.
Yes,
so now folk ain't going to be able to pick you out of the pack no more because you're going to look just like the rest of the sheep.
Wow. That's awesome. That's awesome, sir.
Yeah, I tried not
It was
to.
necessary.
But when the sheep
Necessary.
comes into the fold, and now he's been put into a fold where the shepherd is going to ward off the burrowing insect. He's been put into a fold where the shepherd isn't going to allow the burrowing insect to affect him the way it did in the other flock. This is what the sheep has to do, Sister Lipscomb. The sheep has to make a decision. Am I going to adjust to where I am or still carry what I used to experience? Am I going to adjust to an environment where the shepherd really cares? Or am I still going to walk around in the environment remembering that my last shepherd didn't really care for me? And because I keep that mentality on me, even though the wool was taken off, because it grew back and it looks like what it used to be. God help me. But it's not. But because it looks like what it used to be, I'll get confused as an immature sheep to say, wait a minute, I remember this happening the last time. And the last time I had hair and wool like this, I was hurt. But the shepherd says, you're not in that place no more. You're not in a place where the shepherd is going to allow the deadness of the environment to affect you. I'll relocate before I let you die.
Wow.
Amen.
All right. So let's get back to. I got on the burrowing side because I was dealing with the dead
That's
tree.
good.
All right. So dead tree is in the earth. I said this earlier, Sister Barton, that a dead tree, even though it's dead, can still stand for up to 80 years. So you got a dead tree that hasn't produced any leaves. Branches have been falling off left and right, but the trunk and the base of the tree is still intact. And because the trunk and the base, thank you, sir, of the tree is still intact, Sister Akansha, we find that people still attempt to go to the tree. Let me say that one more time. Because the base of the tree is still intact, people still attempt to go to the tree. Even though the tree is dead, even though there's no life, people still see the image of what it once was, and they still go. But when they get there expecting to experience the same shade that they experienced when the tree was healthy.
Yes, sir.
And because, or if I'm not spiritual enough to see that there's no shade here, I'll continue to go back and go back because it still has the remnants of what it used to be.
Just the branch.
Wow.
So when we experience visible deterioration, it's a lack of fruit. So when I go to the church, I don't feel love anymore because the fruit is gone. When I go to the church, I don't feel gentleness anymore because the fruit is gone. So now I just say I'm through with church altogether because I'm still trying to go somewhere that's dead. Let me get to my next point. Second point in dendrology is I first told you there's visible deterioration. The second thing we find when you're dealing with a dead tree from the roots being planted too deep is that there has to be extensive pruning within a specific season and at a specific place in order for the tree to be recovered. There has to be extensive pruning or cultivating, that's the other word, within a specific season and specific place in order for the tree to recover. So you got a tree now, it's got leaves falling all off, it's not looking right, but you get somebody, you get an arborist that's got some skill, and he comes and he says the only way to save the tree, Minister Black, is I've got to do some extensive excavating. The arborist, Sister Johnson, not only has to have the strength to dig, but also the wisdom to know where to start. Say that again. The arborist has to have the strength to dig, but also the wisdom to know where to start. When a person has been hurt and they are all jacked up, they can't just connect to any church because the arborist, the preacher, the teacher, the leader, the saints may not have the wisdom to know where to start digging. They may not have the strength or the fortitude in order to do the digging. I can't get over political because that violates our right as a church. 501c3 as it relates to the organization with the IRS. You can't be politically involved. So let me just give a sidebar. Even when we're going and we're doing things for our wonderful candidate that's going to be sitting on the school board very soon, I go to those events as her pastor, but I'm more so going as Bert Hinton. I'm not going as Bethel Temple Faith Church because Bethel Temple Faith Church cannot physically back a candidate. All right? So I said that disclaimer to give you this disclaimer. Because I'm still a citizen, all right, I'm going to vote in the presidential election. My issue with all of the candidates, not just one in particular, but my issue with all of those that are still alive, and this is not to be rude or offensive, but it's to be true, I have a problem with their age. I really don't want, I'm just going to be honest, a man that's 75 to start being my president. I looked at President Barack Obama, who was in his 40s when he started, who had hair that was as black as Chris's, who now is 54, and his hair is as gray as Minister Black Sr. Because of the weight that that position holds, somebody in the position needs to not only have the wisdom, but have the strength in order to fulfill the job. All right, so that was my political thing. So my issue with all of them, every one of them, is that when I'm identifying your age, it scares me. Because unless you get a 35-year-old vice president, it's going to be tough sledding for you. Because the demands on your schedule and the demands on your body that it takes to be that kind of leader can literally kill you. So let's get back to the spiritual. I gave y'all my sidebar. In the spiritual realm, you're talking about having a pastor, having a preacher that's got to have the ability to be strong enough to lose sleep.
There you go. That's good.
He's got to be able to still function when he ain't sleep, but for a nap. I'll let y'all figure that out later on. With his nighttime was a nap. God help me to pray. So we find that the arborist has to have the strength to break through the hardness in the ground. But then, Minister Black, he's got to have the wisdom to know what area I got to dig in first. Because if the arborist digs at the wrong angle, he'll do himself more damage and the tree more damage because he'll have to re-dig deeper than what he should have had to go. What is Pastor saying? If the leader doesn't have insight by the Spirit of God into where you are, he can do more damage to you spiritually than he can good because you got a gift. Sister Lip's going to come up here and sing me a song. Wait, let me get healed first, preacher, before you get me to start singing. Let me get some stuff straight in me first before you get me to start serving, because I can't just dig because I know that's where I got to have the wisdom in how and when.
Yes, sir. That's all right.
So he has to have the wisdom to do an extensive excavation. I'm actually still in Luke 13, if you believe it or not, in that same vein, because he says, let me come and let me dig about the tree. Let me dig around the tree before we cut it down, and then let me also fertilize it. God help me here, Sister Conscious. It's getting better to me all the time. He said, let me dig up the junk that was around, but then I don't want to leave the roots exposed to the sun. So let me just not only dig, but also let me do some planting. God,
I got you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad you see it, Black. So it's really like I've got to have the wisdom, Tony, to be able to dig with my right hand and put fertilizer with my left. Because if I allow these roots to be exposed to the light, they can actually die before they're healed. Let me help you. Okay, this ain't in here, so I can say this freely. All right, we get a member that comes in, and I know they're dealing with homosexuality. All right, I know they're dealing with homosexuality. All right, I've got to have the wisdom of God to be able to address where they are. Check this out, without exposing what doesn't need to be uncovered.
Wow.
So I've got to be able to make them feel uncomfortable in their sin, but welcome in the church.
Wow.
I got to make them be squirmish about their lifestyle, but excited to get to learn more about how to get out of it.
Come on, sir.
So if I don't have the energy to deal with his flare up. Oh, God, help me. That when he shows the feminine side towards me, God, help me here. I got to have the ability to not punch him in his face because I understand the spirit that he's dealing with. I got to be able to still massage you while I'm beating you.
Yeah, my God. Yes.
So he says, let me dig, but also let me dung. Let me uproot some stuff around the tree. But let me pour in some positivity into his life. Let me dig out his desire to be with a man and encourage the man that's in him. Let me address the tendency while shedding light on his masculinity. I've got to have the ability to dig and dung so that there's not exposure long enough that he dies.
That's awesome, sir.
So he says, let me just do some work. Let me get to the work of this thing. Sister Balknight, this is the thing. When the arborist is doing this, this process can take months. It's not.
Take strength.
See, okay. The Bible says in 1 John chapter 2, he says, I called the young because they're strong. Now, this is the thing the young got to understand. The young have to understand that you're strong, but you're not superhuman. So just because you can lift the podium, you only need to lift it when you have to lift it.
How about that?
You feel me?
Yes,
just because you can, do 1,000 curls, you only do the 20 that you need to get your definition. All right, I'll get off there. Okay, so he says, with the youth, you've got to have the ability and the wisdom that just because you possess the strength to do what should take 3 months to do in 1 day, you still got to take the time to do it in the 3 months, because if you rush a step in the process, he can still die. First lady gets on me a lot, and I want y'all to know that I'm telling on her, and I get excited when I get an opportunity to teach and preach, because I tell y'all the truth. Everything I say is always true, but First lady beats me up a lot. Now, First lady gets on me this past week. She says, well, why were you so tired on Sunday? And so I looked at it. I said, well, we did a lot of work, on Sunday. It was a pretty full day, Well, you got to learn you can't do everything. So I began to talk to the Lord. And God began, I told you that the other night, right? Yeah, I began to talk to the Lord. And the Lord began to say, son, you stay right where you are. Because even though it's like you got people, you got things, he says, do what I told you to do. And then put them to work. So when First Lady gets to telling me I can't do it all on my own, I don't even respond no more. I just talk to the Lord. Because he tells me, son, you do what I told you to do. You get them where you need to get them. Then you put them to work.
Yes, sir.
So if I got to endure a Sunday like last Sunday, where I got to do the praise and worship and preach and teach and do it at altar call, I'm going to do it until I get y'all where y'all supposed to be, so I can put you to work. But just because the bodies are here, the Lord says you still got to take the time I told you to take, so that when you do this next shift, it'll be sustained.
Smooth. That's right.
God help me. It won't be that now the folks in church saying, well, Pastor got me doing too much. I'm tired. I'm ready to sit down. No, they can review, be able to remember. Minister Black, every time you complain about having to teach Sunday school for 2 months, you can go back to the fact, I remember the first 6, 7, 8 months when Pastor just had me sitting down. So remember these days when you get tired.
I'm with you.
Deaconess Black, remember these days. Pastor got me doing a lot of stuff.
You're doing it all.
Goodness, I'm doing everything. Teaching Sunday school, I'm ushering, I'm directing the choir, I'm doing it all, Jesus. Remember these days. Remember these days. Because God says, son, when you get them where I told you to get them, then you put them to work. So when they say like Pastor chilling, okay, I'm gonna tell y'all remember them days. No, I ain't gonna never chill. I ain't never chill. So all right, here we go. So he says the arborist has to do extensive pruning. He has to take his time. Minister Black, I got so excited when I read the text because the arborist, the man, the vineyard dresser here, Sister Lipscomb, he didn't operate like we tend to do. Let me help us. What does that mean? I know I'm guilty, and I'll put Minister Black in the same category with me. All right, we both guilty in probably putting a demand in too short of a time. Okay, the vineyard dresser, even though he knew his master was upset because there were no fruit coming from the tree, he didn't say, "Give me 2 weeks to tend it." He didn't say, "Give me 3 months to tend it." He said, "Give me a year."
Wow.
Give me a year to really do what I feel like I need to do.
Yeah.
Let me take my time. Let me get a schedule. Let me do these things so I don't rush it. You know, but a lot of us, we feel like if we're trying to bargain for some more time, well, Lord, just give me 3 days and I'm gonna knock it all out. You know you can't do it in 3 days. God, give me 6 days, and day 7 is I got it. And God said, you ain't gonna be nowhere near it in 7 days because this type of fix takes time. Folks, oh God, yeah, okay. People, yeah, okay. People say, I be trying not to do stuff, sister. God, I use me. Okay. First lady and I, we're dating. Amen. To God's grace and glory. Folk would get me all the time. Well, what you waiting so long to marry the woman for?
Only you.
Dude, can I do what I'm supposed to do to make sure I'm right for when I say I do? Don't put me on a time crunch because you looking and making plans that don't even got nothing to do with you. But that's what man does. They trying to rush it. Y'all ain't had no babies yet. How long you waiting? Go sit down. That's how long I'm waiting for you to take a seat. Because when you take several seats and just feel each one of them, just take this whole front row and make sure that your hind parts get each one. I'm talking about both cheeks and every one of them across the front. Take several seats. Because when God is attempting to do something, he says sometimes things take time.
Yeah, you do.
They have to be dug and done. They've got to be uprooted and replanted. So God said, the dresser said, give me a year to do what I need to do. And if things don't happen in a year, then you can shut me down. All right, third point I'm going to give you. And I'm going to probably have to go to the other section of this next week. Now, I still got some more I'm going to give you today, but I'm going to end up next week probably in Daniel chapter 4 because that's going to give us the real typology of what we learned tonight through the study of dendrology. All right, the third point is this. When I've been rooted too deep, it says this. Replanting must occur in the right soil. Replanting must occur in the right soil. Now, we told you earlier in dendrology that a tree whose roots have been planted too deep has to be uprooted or has to be replanted within 5 years. But not only does it have to be replanted in 5 years, it's got to be replanted in the right type of soil. All right. Let's do it this way. Let's turn to Jeremiah. Jeremiah chapter 17. Jeremiah chapter 17. I'm going to give you verse number 8. Jeremiah 17. Jeremiah 17, verse number 8. This is dealing with being replanted in the right soil. Because when I'm replanted in the right soil, my roots will never again go too deep. I want y'all to get that. When I'm replanted in the right soil, never again will my roots grow too deep. Jeremiah 17 and 8 is getting ready to show us why. It says this. Well, I'll give you 7 verse. Blessed is the man that trusteth in the Lord, and whose hope the Lord is. The 8th verse says this. For he